Alright guys, welcome to this brand new video. In here, I'm going to be showing you how you can manipulate, edit, delete, or update any of your HTML table data. So for example, we have a table which is powered by Bootstrap in the behind scenes, but nonetheless, it really doesn't matter what kind of table it is, as long as you have a regular HTML table which has columns and rows, and each one of those have any cells, or as in lack of a better word, if you think about database, it has fields. So we have rows here, we have column, and then in this field, first name we have code and last name is with mark. So if you want to, let's say for example, you have this table and here you want to allow your user to edit any of these fields or the whole row. Traditionally, it's not possible, but I'm going to show you a very easy to use technique that you can implement into your custom web application. So before I go ahead and show you how to do that, all the codes behind it and everything, but let me just show you how this thing works. So I'm going to refresh this page so it loads it up in here. So for example, if I wanted to edit this first name for the first row and I type in something like I don't know, web apps, and before I do anything else, I just want you to notice at the bottom of this screen right here where it says HTML table edit, and I clicked away actually, so that's what happened. So if I click away from this screen, or rather cell, and then at the bottom it will update the value to be whatever I have inputted in here. And for example, if I type in 1 2 3 blah 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 blah, whatever, and if I click out of it, if I click anywhere else, and then you will probably notice this value got updated. So if I want to delete this out completely, let's just say I want to say nothing, and then at the bottom we'll have nothing. So I even said that. Obviously you saw where if you type nothing in there, it can't update or anything. So for example, if I have a data in here, let's say I want to say my data 1 2 3. If I clicked out of it, at the bottom it's going to update to show this is what you did. You're like, wow, Mark, that's amazing, but that's not really a big deal. It is a big deal. Why? Because when you look at the source code pretty soon, you're going to be like, oh my God, this is amazing. It looks like a regular table, but you can edit one field, any one of them, and the only thing you have to do is to edit it, just click on it. So for example, if I go here, where it says, let's click on Julie. So if I click here, double click here, it will update it. It will allow me to edit. Or if I click here, it will allow me to update the data. So if I do this, it allows me to do that for all fields. Or you can have multiple different fields in here in your application, in which your user can edit any given one of them or all of it. Or another way, an option you have is if you want to update the whole row, like for example this row. So I put a button here that says edit. If I click on it, just pay attention right here where it has a link where it says edit. If I click on this thing, and then it's gonna make all of these editable. As you can see, they change the color and everything else. So for example, if I type in, let's say John 1 2 3 and then 555, and in here I'll just take CO, and if I click out of it, it's not going to do anything until I click on the save button. Or I can click save and it will update the value these. So let me just show you. So if I save and it updated it, it shows it, it accepted it and everything else, and at the bottom it has updated in here. So if I do this, so for example, if I delete this, no, I don't want to do that. I want to do the whole row, just show you. All right, so click out. So let's do the whole row. Delete, 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 delete. And I'm going to type in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever. And then if I save it, then it's going to save it. But however, if I am a user of the application And if I make this edit and I change my mind like, oh crap, I don't want to do it, rather than me clicking on save, I could just hit cancel and it will go back to the original data that was there already. All right, enough of this demo stuff. I'm sure you're ready to say, okay, bro, show me the code. How do I do this amazing thing in my own applications? All right, so let's get started. I'm gonna bring up my little Sublime text editor in case you're wondering what editor I use. I use Sublime Text 3.0 or 3, I guess. And let's get started. So at the top, I'm including Bootstrap CSS, and then jQuery is my favorite JavaScript library that I use in all my projects to manipulate the DOM. So that's what I'd use. But if you want to use this with plain JavaScript, you can. I'll show you the concept. You can implement it in the same plain JavaScript, or you could use jQuery. I recommend you use jQuery because it's a lot easier. And on a side note, I will be having a course coming up soon that you guys can enroll in which I will go through basically the course is going to be about how to manipulate data with jQuery. I call it a jQuery DOM manipulation. That's going to be the course title. What do you guys think of that? Pretty neat, right? But if you're just a beginner and you don't know what jQuery is, go to my site, codewithmark.com, and under the resource sections, you will see where you can learn some of the basic stuff on how to use jQuery or any other technology out there. But enough of that. So for those of you who already know how to use jQuery, this is gonna make your life a lot easier in terms of updating tables. So let's get this started. So we included our script tag in here, then we're opening up the DOM with the jQuery, and let's assume that you have gotten this Ajax data from your database, whether it be a PHP database, PHP MySQL, or Node.js with MongoDB, or any other source of data that you got somehow in your jQuery in here. And I'm just going to use this as an example. So this is obviously going to be one row in here. There's only 3 fields. You got the first name, last name, email, and this could be a variety of different fields depending on your data that you have. Point being, this is the data, sample data we'll be working with. And then I have a random ID. What this basically is going to do is going to create a random generated ID, just like if you are familiar with MongoDB. It has a very unique ID, and every time you insert something in there, it's always unique. So this is what I'm doing here. So this is the next part of it, is where we create our table to be shown on the front end side. So this is this part right here. All of this data, which has a column 1, 2, 3, and options, whatever. So let's move on. So the first line of code, if you're familiar with the Bootstrap table creation, nothing special here. So it's just pretty much adding a class saying, hey, use the Bootstrap class called table. And then anytime you hover over it, add the CSS to it. So in other words, every time I hover over it, you'll probably notice the color of that particular row changes. So that's just the hover over of a CSS. It's nothing special about that. So the next part, this part, is just creating a header. So let me put this here. So the headers being where it says first name, last name, email, and options and all that good stuff. All right, so that's what's happening here, but that's just something really basic. The real magic happens in the next section, which is the body of our table. So in here, I'm using the for each function for jQuery, which will loop through all of our data rows, which is all of these 3 rows. And let's move on. So in here, I am saying, since I didn't grab this from my regular database, I'm assigning a random string, which I got from here, as I mentioned earlier. So I'm assigning a random code of ID in here to say this is the row ID, but obviously you want to assign this to be whatever your database ID is here. So we'll make it easy for you when you go to update information back into your database. So having said that, let's move on. So the next row or line is where we loop through all our database, all of our records. So in here, for our first name, we are creating a TD record, and then within the TD record, where I'm creating a div, which has a class of row data, and then I have assigned a custom attribute called edit type, and then I gave it a value of click. Now you might be wondering, why am I doing that? It will all make sense to you by the end of the video, and you're gonna be like, oh my god, this is so much easier. All right, let's move on. So I added another custom attribute called column name, which has the first line has first name, F name, which is first name, just short form it, and then you get L name, which stands for last name, then email, and then so on and so forth. And then I'm adding the data that I got from my database, the value of that particular column field value. I'm just putting in here, and then last but not least, wrapping it around with the div. Simple enough, right? You're following it. It's pretty simple, right? So this is what happens with our last, all three of our rows. And then I'm adding a custom option in here, which is this part right here. So these three columns are coming straight from our database. And then this is where I'm adding the edit button. So let's go through that. So in here, I added an option called edit. And for this particular, it's just a regular hyperlink where I gave it a row ID, which is, as I said, I assigned their auto-generated string. And then I'm just using a bootstrap CSS class saying this is what this is. And then also I wrap that link around the class called btn edit. And then also I have added two more links, which is same concept applies as it did for the edit. So you have row ID, row ID, row ID. One is called save, another one is called cancel. And this is what I'm doing here. I'm wrapping around another spam, cancel, save, and cancel. And this will conclude our creating of the row of the data. So, and then after that, I'm just wrapping it up right here, closing the whole body tag of the table. And then this is where the end of my table goes. And then after that, I'm outputting it to my screen class called TBL user data. This is the div that I have. If I scroll all the way down right here. So I'm just, right now there's nothing in here. So everything is being populated dynamically. And in case you're wondering, you're like, Mark, you're going too fast. You need to slow down. Not to worry. Just like any other videos that I have created for you, you can download or copy and paste all of this wonderful code from the link below. All right. So don't worry. I got you covered. So let's scroll all the way up. So the reason why I like to use $document as compared to just saying, hey, $ here. Because sometimes when you creating things, and this is a side note for in case if you want to know, and from based on my own experience, this is what I found. If you are used to creating a lot of dynamic data or working with a lot of dynamic stuff, if you don't include the word document in front of it, sometimes jQuery doesn't know what to do. Or when it does update it, it will only update the very first occurrence of it. So in other words, if I had this a class on my document twice, it's only going to update the first one. I don't know, but it doesn't happen all the time. That's the weird part. It only happens once in a while, but you don't want to take a chance of saying that, hey, it will happen 9 out of 10 times, but not the 10th time, which is not the way to build your application. to alleviate that problem, or rather solve that problem, what I did was I came across this technique called document. So I added in front of it. So rather than it's going to the body tag, it's going to say anywhere in the whole document, if you find this class, update all of that class's information with this data, no matter where it is. It could be on the front of it. I mean, it could be in the top, middle, sideways, wherever. Just go ahead and update it. And that seems to be working great for me. It hasn't let me down yet, so that's good. And next part is I'm just hiding the save and edit cancel button. So that's what happens. So all of this is happening when the page loads. So let me show you. So if I refresh this page, and then when it loads up, that is what's happening, everything that I just said. All right, so let's move on. So the next part of the code is where we make it editable. You're like, what does that mean? All right, let me put this side by side. So in here, we're going to, wherever I click, like for example here, it's gonna make this editable. Editable, content editable. And how does that happen is there's a attribute if you're using HTML5 document, and most of the modern browsers uses it unless you're using stupid Internet Explorer, and which has problematic on its own. I think they just killed that, but that's just a side note. There is an attribute called content editable set to true. So you can add that attribute to a div or a span. And with my experience with these things, if you try to implement this with either input field or a text box, it doesn't work all the time. It works half of the time, but the other times it does not. I don't know why, but it doesn't. But to make things work all the time or 100% of the time, you want to use either div or span, S-P-A-N. And then this is what will make your div or span content to be editable. And this is why I wrap my TD or my row in a div and I assign the value of a class. So basically what is happening, as you can see now, it has a value, class is raw data, and currently the edit attribute type is click. So what is happening here is saying anytime if my user clicks on any of the cells, so what that means is, for example, if I refresh this now, so this is my table, anytime I click here, every time I click here, this event will take place. And then first thing is going to check to see, hey, is the edit type equal button? If it is, return it false or die, don't do anything. If it's not, then continue with the further code, which is make the div editable and then set a bootstrap class called of BG warning. You can set this to be whatever you like, and I put a padding of a 5 and set the focus to be that. So this is what happens here. So if I refresh it, if I click here, and this happens so fast, it's incredible. If I click here, see how the change the color of the background turn into looks like a little beige color, and then the cursor gets put in here automatically, and that's the focus part, and also it makes it editable. So if I type in 1 2 3 blah blah blah, and then if I click out of it, that's going to be our next thing. So this is out, focus out. So in other words, if I click out of it, and then first thing what I check to see is the option edit type is button. If it is, then die. Otherwise, continue with the code. If I click out of it, it's going to get the next, or rather the very closest TR, meaning, let me show you. So we have this table. If I refresh it and then put this in inspect, and I'm using, by the way, Chrome, and under the element part of it. So what is this saying is that, which, let me put this side by side. You can see it and I can better explain it to you. So let's see, I'm gonna focus on the first row, which is this row right here, the one that's selected. So let's just assume from now on, we're talking about the very first row, which is this. So what this is saying is this part here, out of focus. When you click away, go to the closest TR, which is this, and grab the row ID, which is this, which we assigned it earlier. So let me show you. So let me just do this, make sure, which was right here. And once again, if this is getting a little confusing for you, not to worry. You can always click on the link below and go through it at your own pace. And I did write a blog post just for you so you can follow through it and play around with this little bad boy, and then you can copy and paste this code to somewhere else, so you could do that. All right, so let's move on. So where we at? We are focus out. So it's gonna grab the row ID, and then it's going to get the div, assign a variable to it, call it div, and then it's going to remove the editable content out, attribute out. It's going to remove the class out. It's going to take the pattern out as well. And then what it's going to do is it's going to grab the column name. Remember how we said earlier, we are assigning each column of its own column name. So this could be first name, last name, email. So it's going to check to see which cell did I click on it, and it's going to grab its name associated with it, and also its HTML, which will be the data that it has. And then it's going to assign it, which is just a regular object. It's going to take the name. So in this case, for example, if I click on first name, code, it's going to take the value of this. So it's going to say text, and then first name. It's going to go here, assign it here, assign that value to it, so it becomes an object array, and then also, which is going to be put in here, and then here it extends the object. So what it's doing is it's saying, hey, I got the name in here, last name, and I have the value, but I want to attach or append the row ID to it, so I can send this via AJAX call to my database and update it. And that's what you can do. So you can take this array object and send it to you can write your code in here, say, hey, I want to send this to AJAX, to whatever you want to do. So I already made a little note here for you, so it'll be easier for you. But for my own example, I'm just outputting it to say, hey, this is what's gonna happen, and just show you, and this is what happens. So I f name, which is the first name, and let me just do it right now, 1 2 3 blah blah blah, and I click out of it and then updated it, and it has this row ID that I can go and say, hey, this person updated it that way. And then that's what's happening. And then let's go on to the rest of the code. So hopefully you are understanding that this is fairly easy. And like I say, if you're having a slightly hard time following it, you can click on the link below, read the post, so that way you can follow it at your own pace, or you can obviously rewind this video and watch it again. So let's move on. So in the edit part, same concept as the first one. It's going to grab the first closest TR. It's going to grab the ID. Then it's going to hide this time the save. It's going to show the save button and cancel button and hide the edit button. And this is what's happening when I'm going to close this off. So this is what's going to happen when I click on this. So it makes all those things editable. So this is what's happening here. So anytime if go find the class that is labeled row data, make all those fields to be editable and add the type to be button this time around. The reason being is because, let me just show you. So this time, let me hit cancel. So for example, if I refresh the page and I click this edit, as compared to before me hitting edit, if I click here and click out of it, it automatically assumes that, hey, I only want to update one field. So what I'm doing is, anytime I hit the button edit, I am assigning this to be, so let's see, visuals is always better in my book. So if I refresh this and then just place close attention to right here where the event edit type is click. So if I click here and then click out of it and then still is click. So now this time around when I click on the edit button, so you see right now the edit type is button. So nothing will happen until I press the button's links, either save or cancel. And that is what's happening here. And then as I said before, it's going to loop through all of the, and then also what it's going to do rather, is going to take the original value in the row and then it's going to add it to a custom attribute called original entry. In case your user decided to hit cancel, it's going to replace it with the original that it was rather than what the person typed in. This is just a small fail safe. And then cancel button, that's purely obvious. I just explained it. If someone clicked on the cancel, it's going to take the original value, which was original entry, and it's going to replace it to what it originally was. Nothing special there. Hopefully you're following it. But if you're not, you already know what to do. There's a link in the description for you. In any case, let's move on. Last but not least, which is save button. So a save button, for the most part, it works just like a regular single edit one, but this time around, we're grabbing all of the data. So let's go through it. So we're grabbing the first TR, row ID. We're gonna hide the save button, cancel button, and then show the edit button. And then we're gonna add the attribute to say click for all the fields or cells that has class of row data. And then we're gonna remove the content editable table attribute. We're gonna remove the class. We're gonna remove the padding. And then we're gonna go through each one of the cells, grab its column name or cell name and its value, and then we're going to assign it to this object, which will be here. And then at the end, just like we did with the one object before when we edited only one cell, we're going to attach or append the row ID. And then for example purposes, I'm only showing it right here. So that is what we're doing here. So let's refresh it one more time. So we have our regular table that we got the data from our Ajax call. We updated it. We added options button here. And then if we want to edit any of this information, let's say the email only. So I'll say 1, 2, 3. And then as soon as I click out of it anywhere, if I click away, and then it updates it here. So, hey, this is what you want to send it to your server to say, hey, for this row ID, for the column email, update this value. Or if I want to update the whole row, I could just say, hey, go ahead, update this whole row if I click on save. And then I got all these different objects. So I'm going to send this data to my server. Say for this row ID, update the email, the last name, and the first name, and life is good. All right, I think this video is long enough. Having said that, I'm gonna conclude it. Hopefully you found this helpful, but if you need any assistance of recapping all of this, or you wanna copy the code that I already showed you in this video, you can click on the link below where you'll be able to read through my blog post that I wrote for you and also copy this code to incorporate in your web projects or website or wherever you want to incorporate. And until next time, guys, happy coding!